Here we go. All right. Good afternoon, Pacific Northwest. Here we are. And all the other good times for anyone else who's watching around the world. We are here to do our weekly talks with Joanna Thorne. And today we are going to go into how food can support our hormones. And this is working on the foundation that we built last week, talking about all the different biomes. And it's also we thought of it because someone had asked a question, what is seed cycling for your hormones, which was in some of my comments from the last session that we had. So Joanna is going to go ahead and start telling us about food, the hormones, how to support it, and also to answer that question, what is seed cycling? And actually, she likes to call it fat cycling. So we'll just go ahead from there, Joanna. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everybody. For a minute there, I was kind of in shock when she said good afternoon. I have like no concept of time these days. So welcome and thank you for taking the time out to join us here today live. And if you couldn't make it live, then thank you for taking the time to watch this recording. And I hope that you find some value in it. And do feel free to post your questions and comments, as Jasaya said, because we will answer them and talk about them for you. So, last week we were talking about how our, bodies are just this beautiful, miraculous entity that we get to inhabit. And we were focusing on our personal ecosystems, which is in reference to, all of the biomes that we have basically externally as well as internally that make up who we are and how we function, basically. And also touched on the fact that if our biomes are not in harmony and not balanced, then this is where we're going to experience some health challenges or some issues or symptoms, or if you've been following me for a while now, then I like to refer to them as love notes. And it's basically our ways body of communicating with us and trying to get our attention. And so, our bodies are these miraculous beings, really, and they're dynamic. They're not static, right? So every second of every moment, they are constantly shifting and changing. And our needs are constantly shifting and changing on all levels. So that's, nutritionally, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well, too, because everything is all interconnected. And that's really important to remember that. And so as women, we go through 4 particular cycles within a moon cycle. And our bodies are doing different things and working on specific functions within each of those cycles. And that might be something for another discussion. But right now, what I'd like to speak to is that, this is where food comes into play, because specific foods give us specific nutrients, right? And we have specific needs at certain times of the month, basically. And so a really simple way to be able to support hormone balance is to use food in this way to support us. And, this is why in my course that I have created called Cyclical Wisdom for the Modern Woman, that's basically what we're doing. We've taken each phase of our cycle and broken it down into those phases. And then we're looking at what are the specific foods that provide those nutrients, within that cycle that can support us at a much higher level. And this is also something that's really important to note, is that this is where variety comes into play. If you're eating the same 10 foods over and over and over and over and over again, that's kind of static. That's not dynamic. If you are not eating local foods that are in season, then you're not getting specific support for your ecosystems that you need, that are only available in those essential realms. And if you're not eating your foods necessarily combined in a specific way at a certain time of day, then you're not getting the most benefit from them as well, too. And sometimes putting extra stress on your body. And so one thing I always talk about is life equals life. So we are only as alive as the life that's in our food, right? If we're eating vibrant, high frequency, just full of dynamic life food, then that's going to translate to us. And if we're not, we're eating processed food, or, we are, even if we're eating, really healthy food, if we're not eating enough of a variety and, cycling that out through the seasons as well too, then we're missing out on really key components of the nutrients. And then another factor that comes into play with that is you could be doing all of these things. You could be eating all of these foods. You could be following, all of this support and all of this guidance. But if our biomes are not functioning up to par and are not in harmony and balance, then we're not going to be able to extract and process and deliver these nutrients in a way that our bodies actually need and can be utilized. So you can begin to see that there's so many layers and so many pieces, to this. And so that's why I talk about it so much. And that's why I like to dive deep into it, so we can break down all of these pieces and all of these layers. And one of the questions, like Josiah had mentioned, was that somebody had asked about seed cycling. And so I'd like to speak to that for a few minutes here. And so seed cycling, if you look it up on the internet, it's a pretty popular concept, and it gets used a lot in nutrition work, especially with female health. And the basic premise and idea is that from day 1 up into day 14, you are looking at estrogen boosting foods, so to speak. And the 2 seeds that are named within that part of the cycle is flax seeds and pumpkin seeds. And then on the second half, where we go from full moon back to new moon again, this is the phase where you are looking at supporting more progesterone. And so sunflower seeds and sesame seeds are named in this part of the cycle. Now, I like to span that out just a little bit more, and I like to call it fat cycling. And within that first part of the phase with the flax seeds and the pumpkin seeds, I like to bring fish oils into that as well too. And then on the second part of it, when you're going from new moon to full moon and working with progesterone, then I like to bring in the evening primrose piece into that part of it as well too. And that just gives us a little bit more variety and kind of just widens out the scope of what we are using to support ourselves, within this dynamic or within this thought process here. Something really important to note is that if we are not either purchasing sprouted nuts and seeds or doing it ourselves, then I don't recommend doing this. Because at that point, you're actually putting way more stress on your digestive system by eating these, these seeds in these nuts that are not in a way where the nutrients are actually bioavailable to you. And your body has to work so hard to try and extract anything out of them. And so what happens is, with nuts and seeds is they have their own defense systems. If you look at, in nature, seeds and just in general, they don't just land on the ground and instantly sprout out and become a plant, right? There's a whole process that needs to happen and that they need to go through in order to make that happen. And so there is these defense systems that are built into them. And so that's why, there's a certain amount of rain and moisture that needs to happen for some. And some of them actually need to be eaten by other animals, go through their digestive system to remove that protection, and then come out again, through the bowel movement, and then be released into the soil and into the earth. Now it's ready after it's received all this water and all the other elements of the sun or the warmth. Temperature plays a huge role. Light plays a huge role. Some do better in light, some need darkness. So you can see there's all these variables that are involved to activate the life within these foods. And that is what we are looking at, and that is what we are speaking to here. And so I really want to preface that and, share that if you are not eating nuts and seeds that are already alive, so to speak, and ready to be digested, then, like I said, that's putting a really big stress on your digestive system. And this can actually wreak more havoc on your biomes and disrupt things as well. Like I said, putting stress on your digestive system. So what that looks at is your body is just working so hard to try and extract something out of this food that you just took in. And it expends all this energy and it's exhausted. And you might, if you're lucky, get like this much out of it. Whereas instead, if this food has been activated first, which is a term that is often used, and just a simple soak and a very small sprout is all that's needed in order to make and allow these nutrients to be bioavailable, at that point, then you're getting like this much nutrition out of it. And your body is like, oh my God, yes, thank you. Now I know what I can do with this. And you aren't ready to fall asleep or pass out after expending all that energy. So now your brain is sharper, you're actually supporting your hormones, and your body has what it needs in order to facilitate that harmony and that balance. And again, we have to first go back to the biomes and make sure that they are functioning and up to level as well too. And if they're not, that's where, eating these unactivated or eating these unactivated nuts and seeds can actually really be more detrimental than helpful. And so, flax seeds in this part of the cycling here, in this first part from new moon to full moon. Now, I keep saying new moon to full moon. So if your cycles are in sync with the planet and its cycles, then your cycle will be starting on the new moon. And moving through in that cycle. If it's not, then, doesn't mean that anything is horribly wrong. It just means that you're not in sync with the planet. And as you work on, supporting hormone balance and supporting yourself to come more back into connection with the planet and working with the circadian rhythms, you will often notice that shift where your cycle comes back into harmony with the moon cycles again as well, too. And so when I'm referring to new moon to full moon, I'm speaking of days 1 through to 14. And as I said, we are looking to support estrogen within this part of the phase. And flax seeds and pumpkin seeds are the two that are highlighted here, along with fish oils. And so flax seeds don't necessarily need to be sprouted ahead of time. But what we do want to do with those is we want to make sure that they are being stored properly. And so I always recommend storing them in glass jars in the freezer, actually, and then only grinding a small amount as you need it per each day, because that prevents the rancidity issue from coming in and creating free radical damage and adding more toxins and putting more stress on the system as well, too. And then pumpkin seeds are the other thing in here. And so pumpkin seeds are definitely ones that you would want to soak and sprout a little bit beforehand in order to activate the nutrition and make it bioavailable to you with ease at a cellular level. So that's the first part. Second part, as we said, is from day 14 all the way until your first bleed day. And this is, if you're in cycle with the moon phases, this is from full moon back to new moon again. And in this area, again, we're looking to support progesterone levels. And so sunflower seeds and sesame seeds are brought into this part. And both of these, it is recommended that you do a quick soak and sprout on these as well, too, for the same reasons that we've been talking about here. And this is also a good place to bring evening primrose oil in to the mix as well, too. And so you can see that I like to, actually expand the variety, right, of what we are doing. And when we are using food as medicine in this way, we want to be very clear about how we are doing this so that we are not just getting into the habit of doing the same things over and over and over and over and over again without connecting it into a specific functionality that we are trying to support within the body as well, too. And something I just have to throw out there as well, too, as we're talking about this subject, is that, nowadays, we have to be very careful of not overloading our omega-6s, This has kind of always been an area where we've had to watch out. Like when I first started into the world of nutrition, like over 20 years ago, this was something we learned in nutrition school as well, too. You have to have the right ratios between your omega-3, 6s, and 9s, right? A lot of people have, kind of heard about that. And so, back then it wasn't as big of an issue as it is today. And the reason it's such a big issue today is because, we are, as a society and as humanity, ingesting more and more nut and seed products. And so you have all of these nut and seed cheeses, nut milks, all the seed oils, and all of these things as well, too. So I have to put a warning out here to you and mention that it's very important for you to notice and be aware of how much of that you are bringing into your habits and into your daily diet, and so, if you're drinking a ton of nut milks, and if that's all you're using and you're just, using nut cheeses like continuously day in, day out, like in large copious amounts, then I have to put this warning out here that you could really seriously be leading your body into an imbalance and causing a lot of possible issues for yourself down the line. So just something to keep in mind. We can use food as medicine, but we also have to be aware of balance and moderation, and when and how to use these foods. This is where it gets really crucial. And even myself, I do like to make my own nut and seed milks because I like that variety. I use the water buffalo milk and we use some nut and seed milk, but I'm always cycling. So whatever I'm doing one day, I don't do again for another 4 days. And it's always a cycle and a rotation. And this is really helpful. And this might be something that you could benefit from as well, too, if you want to be able to combine all of these things into your daily practices, right? As same with the nut cheeses and, all of these things as well, too. So just something to think about and be mindful of. And this is where knowing the ingredients in your food really comes in handy as well, too. So read those labels really well, especially if you're not making your own foods, and a lot of you are probably thinking to yourself, well, I am just way too busy. There is no way that I'm going to be sitting here soaking and sprouting my own nuts and seeds. Like, forget it. So the good news is this is one of the benefits of living in the modern society today, because we have our pros and we have our cons, right? And one of the pros is that you can very easily purchase sprouted nuts and seeds these days in great variety. Whether it be online or in stores. So, check out your local health food stores or, stores that have those sections in them, however you shop, look online, like whatever it is that you normally do. This is an opportunity to get curious about your resources and what's available to you. So, all of these things are out there. In some areas, depending on where you live, they're a little bit easier to find. And in other places, they may be a little bit trickier, but not necessarily impossible. And so I really invite you to, consider these things if you are thinking about bringing seed cycling into your repertoire as a way to support hormone balance. And it is something that can be extremely helpful, but it can also be harmful if not used properly and correctly. And so I just want to throw that little piece out there to you as well. And I think that would be an excellent place to just end that piece and see if there's any questions or any comments.
Great. Well, so I just wanted to kind of summarize that basically, if you're interested in doing seed cycling, you can do it, as I was saying before, in mother or crone time. So whether you are currently menstruating or not, you can still be doing this cycling. You follow the new moon. So you either follow your cycle that is currently happening, or you just follow the moon and go within those phases, right? And
exactly. And I was just going to say, so I'm postmenopausal, and that's what I do. So I go from new moon to full moon to new moon. So it's actually really simple. It's really easy. It's better than counting days, actually, to just follow the moon cycle.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something for people who are listening, and if you're interested, to do. Also, that there's that seed cycling, but there's also some of those oils and fats that are really important. And as we go through things week after week, I'm sure we'll be discussing fats and good fats. That's something that I started to learn with you. Opening up my world to understanding how important it is to have oils. Go ahead.
That just reminded me of something that I had wanted to throw in there that I didn't, was that, I was talking about, cooking with these seed oils. And so that's one place that you can eliminate, these seed oils, is when we actually return to our more traditional ways of using tallows and lards that have been produced from healthy animals in a sustainable and regenerative way. And so by returning to those processes and eliminating, the seed oils in the cooking and in that aspect, really lightens up the load and supports harmony and balance.
Right, which is great for people who are not vegetarian or vegan. If they are, what are your suggestions around that?
You've got to be very careful and watch your intake and be very mindful of what you are doing, because it's really easy to go into an overloaded state and an imbalanced state at that point.
Right. Right. So the seed cycling and the fat cycling, you have the opportunity to follow your own cycle or follow the moon. And if you are using a lot of other nuts and seeds in your diet, then it's something you want to pay attention to. And one way to help you manage that is to go through rotations. So there's a 4-day rotation. That absolutely was a critical point in helping my own gut and my own healing. And I'm sure Joanna will touch that in the weeks to come, for people who are interested in that. And it also sounds like something that is just an easy way to help you regulate not doing the same thing all the time, even if you're not in an acute state like I was, where it was of the absolute crucial essence to stay on that 4-day cycle. So that's a nice tool to just kind of help you just rotate and have the diversity,
Right.
which diversity is shown as key in gut health, and it's shown as key in soil health, and it's shown as key in the animal world. So I mean, just I feel like those are some nice, easy tools to help you just keep diversity, and just think about, I never even considered. I thought, well, olive oil is fine enough for me. I didn't think I needed to add more oils, but then I learned that actually healthy oils are really healthy for us and good. Now my cabinet is, full of oils that I wasn't interested in cooking in or whatever, but now I'm using them as medicine.
Right.
Instead of it just being another thing to cook with or another flavor, it's like that diversity to, keep feeding us in that way. And then the other part I just wanted to summarize, I can't remember. So, but we're kind of at our small little chunk of past 20 minutes. So there's no other questions at the moment. There was, did you want me to put this link in the chat that I have?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So I wanted to just mention really quickly that I have recently come across the work of Jane Harwick Collins, and I highly recommend checking out her work. She's on Instagram. I believe she's on Facebook, but I follow her on Instagram. Check out her website. But she has developed an app that I recommend every woman use. Like, if you really want to connect your cycles to the planetary cycles and just really anchor back into our innate wisdom and deep connection with this planet, Mother Earth, then this is the app for you. It just blew my mind when I found it, and I was so excited. It's called Spinning Wheels, and Josiah is going to put the link up in here. And it is a beautiful way to not only track your cycles, but to really get to know yourself. And, you can use this app. I'm using it as postmenopausal, because again, just because we're not bleeding doesn't mean we don't have cycles, right? And so it's really important, especially in this phase of our life, as we are in the Maga phase, moving towards the Crone phase, to begin to, it's referred to as the autumn harvest time, right? So this is the time where we're harvesting the things that we have gleaned in our life up to this point and preparing for that winter Crone phase, although we're not quite there yet. And so no matter where we are in our journey of maiden, mother, Maga, Crone, this app can support you. There's a free version and there's a paid version at a very reasonable price. And again, this app can really support you to just really get to know yourself in a different way, receive incredible guidance, knowledge, information, and to track your cycles in a way that, ancient women used to. That really puts us back into connection with things. And I really encourage everybody to check out her work as well, too. It is just absolutely beautiful and amazing. And she has a beautiful school called, I think it's called the School of Womencraft. And she has incredible courses on there, as well as on her site, that I highly recommend to every woman out there. So check it out.
Cool. I'll write down there, the School of Womencraft, and we have the link for the app that you're talking about in the chat.
Yeah. And that'll take you to her website, so that I believe that's a page on her website. So then you'll kind of already be in there and you can check things out, or just look her up on Instagram. It's Jane Harwick Collins. Great.
I'll write that down in here too. Okay. Any last words to wrap up today?
No, I think that's it.
Perfect. I'm going to just put her name in here. I hope I spelled it right. And, well, thank you so much for today. And, already people in my little biome are talking about biomes.
Hey!
And, we're discussing it and feeling the relevance of it, and, seeing the potency. And so that's very cool.
Yay.
And it's nice also, just some last thoughts from me is that it is really nice, for us to just have, how do you say it? Like, these are just, the everyday things, that there's a magic and a way to connect in everyday things. And this is one of the ways to do it, I think, especially when we start to be able to bring ancient wisdom in with, modern science, hence your, everything that you're doing. And I feel like that's really nice. And it gives us an opportunity to connect in more with our food, our kitchens, our products, and especially knowing that we could choose one thing over another for a specific purpose, which is not only to support our bodies, but to also bring us in more alignment with the planet that we live on, and in the circadian rhythms. And I think that's pretty cool. So.
And it is pretty cool when you start to experience that connection in your life as well, too. Yeah. We live in a world where we, especially as women, are just so disconnected from our bodies and, our cycles. I mean, these menstruation is a rite of passage, but, that's not often how it starts out for many of us, right?
Right.
And then motherhood is a rite of passage, whether we birth actual children into this world or not, we are still in our birthing phase within that part, right? And then we come in, so we have the spring, which is the maiden, and that first menstruation. And then we have the summer, which is the mother phase. And then we have the autumn, which is the Maga phase. And this is something that I learned through Jane's work as well, too, because I always felt like, in this society today, it's like there was something missing, because you can't just go straight from mother to crone. I'm like, there's this piece missing in here. And so that's where I began to understand this autumn Maga phase, which just was like this light bulb moment, and was like, oh my God, yes, that makes so much more sense, right? And then crone being in the winter season, being much later on. But that's the beauty of the things that we are talking about in this container, is that we can support ourselves in all of these cycles, right? By tapping in and by connecting, because our wombs are just, our wombs and the moon are synonymous, really. And there is so much wisdom and so much information there. And like I said, in our modern day society, as women, we have been pushed into this role of being the same every day, like heaven forbid, we change from day to day, and then we're called crazy. But no, and we're not meant to keep this same like pace like every day either. Like, that's the whole point of being in connection with the moon cycles, is there's a time to, when and during our cycle when we have more energy, and then there's a time when it's time to just step back,
right,
and to just rest,
and that's also diversity,
exactly.
like it just goes right back to, diversity is shown all the way from the microbes to the soil to our gut to the plant life to the animal life to the cycles of our own selves, that the monotony and the everyday for all things is stagnant. And so
Exactly.
the dynamic aspect of diversity is key. And
And it's time to step out of that mold, that patriarchal society has tried to push us into.
That's right.
And be like, you can't be successful if you're not, especially in the business world, because so many women work these days, and are in the corporate world and hold, all kinds of positions in society. And yet we're expected to show up exactly the same every day. But that's not recognizing the fact that as women, that is absolutely impossible.
And as humans, we are
out of
cyclical,
balance.
right?
Exactly.
As
Even
women
men.
and also as humans, we are cyclical.
Exactly.
And so what's nice is, as we're, God willing, transferring out of, the system that's been so insane for so long, even if we're still sort of in it, there are these little microcosms and like smaller biomes that we can have control of, to at least bring us to some element of cycling, if a lot of us still are on that main hard arrow road. These are some ways to bring us to that cycle.
And that's what we're hoping that these little discussions are going to support you to do as well too.
And remind us.
Yeah, you curious,
Yes.
because a lot of us, I know for myself personally, it's like so many of these things that I teach and that I talk about and that I've implemented, in the work that I do, they were never a part of my life. And they were so foreign and so bizarre, at first. But it wasn't until I really began implementing things and incorporating it into my life where I really began to see the shifts and the changes in my own health challenges. And that really took me into the deeper work of really doing the womb healing work, which, is not a piece we can ignore. Our wombs will speak to us until we listen. So time to listen.
Absolutely. Well, I know that we'll explore that when the time is right in our weekly session. So I look forward to that aspect. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and the farm life and the wood chips and the animals and the roosters and the ducks. And anyone who is listening now or listening later, always please feel free to ask us questions, either in the DMs or in the comments, and we will just keep on building off these foundations and introducing more and more the pillars of Joanna's cyclical wisdom for the modern woman and all of the things that it entails. So
right. And then also just a reminder too that my book is out there that introduces the foundation and the 10 steps. And that is basically the foundation of everything that I teach and everything that we will be talking about here as well too. So if you're curious at all, I think Josiah is putting the link back up in the chat.
I have to find the link. I don't have it on me in the chat.
Okay,
but
so we will put it in the comments after this gets posted up. So if you want to check it out, it will be there. But basically, because it's through Amazon, depending on what country you live in, just go into your Amazon, type in Live Vibrantly and my name, Joanna Thorne, and it will pop up. It's a green cover with a very old picture of me on it. And that would be the one. So
and I have it written down right here in the banner.
Yeah, perfectly.
Book, so
okay, great. So if you're curious and want to start diving a little bit deeper on your own, and then you can also bring any questions you have from reading the book to this chat as well too. So
definitely, it's a great book. I've read it twice.
And it's an easy read. It's not like it's super intense or super deep. It's just a very easy to read, brief introduction, because that's what wanted it to be, instead of like a textbook that we just goes. So.
Exactly. Okay, well, we will sign off for today. Mwah. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you,
And
everybody.
until next week.
So appreciate you. Thank you, Josiah. Appreciate you too.